Welcome to Terra Talks, where we talk about all things real estate. In each episode, we'll tackle current trends and topics of interest, both locally and regionally. However or wherever you decide to tune in, you're not going to want to miss this.
Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Terra Talks. My name is Laura Rothschild, and I'm from Terra Luxury here in Barbados. And I'm joined today by our senior negotiator, Andrew Blandford-Newson from Knight Frank International.
Good to be here. Thank you very much for having me today.
Thanks, Andy. I'm so excited to have you as we discuss trends in luxury real estate, both in Barbados and globally. Having an international real estate partner means that we benefit from a global reach with a significant and extremely well-known brand that is Knight Frank. This is a partnership that has been going strong for nearly 20 years. I believe that what makes this union so special is that Knight Frank and Terra Luxury share a very similar ethos of business with a focus on providing clients with the tools and knowledge to make informed decisions, whether that would be selling or purchasing real estate in Barbados. But before we get started, Andy, why don't you tell us a little bit more about Knight Frank?
Yes, of course. So we are the world's largest privately owned property consultancy. We have over 18,000 people who work across the 600 offices we have in over 50 territories. So we have quite a global presence, but as you touched on earlier, Laura, it's more about who we align ourselves with locally. So we obviously align ourselves with like-minded people, and Terra Luxury have got a very similar ethos to what we have at Knight Frank, and that relationship has blossomed over the years, and it's one which we greatly cherish. We have a global reach which allows us to be globally connected as well as locally expert through agents with great reputations such as yourself.
Yes, Andy, I completely agree. I feel that we are completely in sync with each other. It makes it much easier when you're able to visit the island and see the various properties and then go back home and discuss with various clientele who you think might be suitable. It seems that it's worthwhile you making that extra trip every year and meeting with our vendors and buyers alike. Exactly.
It's very valuable for us to actually be here on ground zero, to hear what's going on in the market from you guys directly, experiencing, the new places, and especially being able to see things in person and actually meet clients face to face at the properties, builds rapport. And it helps us massively going forward. So it's definitely something that I obviously love coming back to this beautiful place once a year, maybe not enough. But yeah, it's definitely a place that I hold close to my heart, and it's always good to see you.
In fact, one vendor yesterday took a particular shining to you and said that she felt that it's really important for them to be able to meet with you on island, as nobody else in Barbados that she had the property listed with had done anything like it, and she felt it added significant value.
And it's how we differentiate ourselves from the competition.
100%. Yeah. So I'm just going to discuss really a brief overview of what we're seeing in the luxury market in Barbados. So firstly, what we sort of define as luxury market. Typically, it's a property that's listed for over US $500,000, right up to 30, 40, 50 million even. And usually these properties are located on the West Coast, where most of the high net worth individuals and ultra high net worth individuals like to be based. We're seeing obviously a trend in the last 3 years, which is really impressive for the island. We've had 4 significant trophy properties, we'd like to call them, close, and that would be a listing that is listed for over 30 million US. So to have 4 in the last 3 years where we hadn't seen even one for a good few years prior to that is pretty impressive. So obviously having that confidence from these basically billionaires is really driving the market up, which is fantastic.
Definitely. I mean, the super prime sector, not only on the island but across all the markets that we cover internationally, has definitely started to detach itself from the rest of the market, from the prime market itself. We've really seen a confidence at this level. You know, we're working on quite a few discrete listings at the top end of the market.
Yep.
And there's a lot of confidence in sellers in this bracket at the moment, not only on the island, again, across the board. You know, we've arguably reached the peak of rate rises. So hopefully we do start to see activity start to trickle back into the prime markets now that rates have arguably reached their peak, most certainly in the UK. And, you know, as a result of that, sales volumes, specifically within the prime market, have taken a bigger hit than prices. And that lack of inventory has persisted, you know, right across main European markets that we cover, the cities and both the countryside markets as well. So it'll be a really interesting time to see what happens over the season on the island, to see if cash is still king. It's very much what we're seeing across the board at the moment. But, you know, again, going back to that confidence in the super prime sector, I'm sure that we will see, fingers crossed, you know, that sort of end of the market performing well over the coming months.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And whilst there, according to our Terra Red data that we provide for our clients, both buyers and sellers, for the first half of this year, we did actually see a 14% decline in real estate transactions, which we know has been impacted partly by land tax bills that were delayed and sales that should have closed in May or June, having to close in July instead. So we're not too worried about that figure, because despite this, the average sale price is actually up by 3%. It's also noteworthy that the average sale price in the parish of St. James has more than doubled in the first half of 2023 compared to the first half of 2022. So yeah, we're not concerned tremendously, because obviously what we're seeing is that the pricing is holding, and if anything, maybe even increasing slightly in some areas. And as we've pointed out, the ultra sort of high net worth bracket, that flagship property is increasing, which is incredibly important for our market.
Yeah, and I mean, of course, there's risks which we probably should, you know, speak about. You know, the geopolitical environment at the moment it's very tense, and a lot of buyers and sellers might be a little bit stagnant as a result of that.
Yeah.
Again, the cost of debt coming back into that's going to play a big part in buyer sentiment, I think, over the season. UK, we've got elections next year as well. You know, you mentioned earlier, a big portion of the market here is driven by UK demand and US demand and Canadian demand as well. From our side, you know, we're a British-based company. Of course, we operate internationally, but a lot of the clients that I deal with day to day are based back home in the UK. So that is on people's minds as well coming into the season. So there are a few things that we have to navigate. But as we've just discussed, you know, the signs are there for a good season. So we've just got to make it happen, really. 100%.
And you know, one of the primary reasons why people love Barbados is the fact that it's extremely family friendly island, and we're very lucky where, you know, we see historically very low crime rates, particularly in the tourist places. So I know that for families and for, you know, traveling husbands, they feel safe. They feel like they can leave their kids here with mum, with nanny, and not have to worry when they're, you know, working elsewhere. So we're very fortunate. We also have fantastic infrastructure, arguably the best in the Caribbean. So that obviously drives more people to the island, because it's better for longer stays, like our winter birds who historically come over this time of year, November, right through to April. We just wish you could stay a bit longer.
I wish I could sort of hibernate for the winter here.
So all of these factors definitely, you know, help restore confidence in the market and also help our clients feel safe enough to invest in our market. We also have some of the best fiber optic internet in the Caribbean, but also in the UK. I know where my mum lives in Devon, her internet's pretty awful in comparison to ours in little old Barbados. So yeah, we're very fortunate to have that. We saw a lot of a sort of younger demographic coming over to invest in the island. And I believe that this really started, or we really noticed the impact during COVID when our digital nomad visa, the welcome stamp, was introduced, and being the first out the gates with that, we got a lot of great media coverage and a lot of techies, startup tech people that were able to just kind of pick up and leave and be able to work from here with their families. We saw an increase in all of the schools, private schools on island from various welcome stampers. So, and then that in turn, after living here for a year or two, developed into sales. So, we're very fortunate now to not just rely on those retirees. We are seeing a shift in the market, and we're seeing a lot sort of fresher, younger people enjoying our home.
Definitely, yeah, and that's actually translating into the into their preferences and into the properties that are being brought onto the market. It's more targeted towards turnkey modern homes, and that's not something that's just specific to the island. It's something that we've seen off the back of COVID. Not completely gone are the days, but I think with that younger demographic of buyers, gone are the days where people used to fall in love with a property and pour their heart and soul into it. Spend 2-3 years to sort of reconfigure and redesign it. Of course there are still properties which allow you to do that, but I think from my experience, a lot of our buyers these days are younger, are less patient, to be honest with you, and since the wait. And I think COVID has impacted this greatly, I think, as well. Being locked up for 18 months to 2 years. I think a lot of people's plans, they've wanted to accelerate their plans and not to sort of wait any longer to be able to enjoy their properties that they have
100%
as their second home.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And in fact, we had a buyer, I believe it was 18 months ago, who was not ready, was not willing to wait for a property. He wanted something now because he'd been waiting 18 months. He retired at the start of January 2020, ready to travel the world. And then obviously COVID happened, and he spent the first 6 months of COVID basically cancelling all of his travel plans. So he was ready and raring to go when he got to Barbados, because he realized that they kept coming back to this beautiful island, so why not invest? And they wanted something completely turnkey where they just brought their suitcases and were able to enjoy holidays with their families immediately. So what we are seeing is that trend in turnkey, ready-to-go homes selling quicker than some of the older, more traditional homes, because that's the way that our buyers are going. So yeah, for sure. I think it's also worth noting some of the luxury developments in Barbados, because we are seeing obviously a huge amount of investment, particularly in Apes Hill at the moment, which has had a huge amount of money spent in the amenities, creating a second to none lifestyle for multi-generational families. And basically they are trying to create a place where the kids, grandkids, grandparents can all enjoy some form of activity, whether that's the newly reconfigured golf course or the fun par 3 course where you can turn up in baggies and flip-flops and just have fun, as well as the golf simulator, which is only one of 5 in the entire world. So it's something pretty special. And down to the sort of hiking trails, outdoor aesthetics gym. There's just something for literally anybody. And they've recently also will be including a beach club. So that will be interesting once they release a bit more information on that, because I think that will kind of just finish the product off entirely, really. And we have seen a huge amount of interest in Apes Hill.
Yeah. Definitely.
Since
renewed confidence for sure.
100%.
Yeah.
The developer is extremely well known and trusted. He's had a lot of people he knows, friends, family, also invest. So that's showing confidence in him as well. And yeah, we're seeing a lot of development. You go up there now, there's construction everywhere, not just with the amenities, but with new homes, creating this eco sort of philosophy throughout the whole estate. So that's been interesting. We've also seen some new amenities being added to Royal Westmoreland, like the paddle courts, and they've also included some hiking trails up there too. And as far as I know, they are still continually selling, so they're still on the ground and running. And then we also have, of course, the renowned Sandy Lane estate, which has always sold extremely well, particularly to people that want to own everything that's within their property, as in they control all of the security, they control all of the sort of gardening, everything, so that it's not down to sort of higher fees per se, but you are getting complete control over your property. And the other thing with Sandy Lane, which makes it a little bit different to Apes Hill and Royal Westmoreland, is typically the lots there are larger. So you are getting a little bit more privacy. That being said, obviously, there are lots there that don't necessarily get sea views like they would have done once upon a time, because neighbors have grown their trees and whatnot. So that's something you may want to consider when you're looking to invest in that particular estate. Then we also have the new Allure development, which is located slightly south of the West Coast, but on a beautiful stretch of beach called Brighton. And we only have 7 out of 24
it's been very popular
units remaining. And that was launched in the summer, which isn't even our lucrative winter season. And we're already, 2/3 away through selling them. So that's been fantastic. Again, obviously a beachfront product. And for investors, if you're looking at rental income, beachfront is always going to be king. When you think of Barbados, you think of the beach. So obviously that's what most people want when they're looking to holiday here. So if you're looking at that in particular as an investment, then obviously that would be a development I would be looking at right now. And then obviously the other great thing about Barbados are our golf courses. I touched on Apes Hill, which has recently been completely remodeled. We also have Royal Westmoreland and Sandy Lane, and the extremely private Green Monkey course, which is very expensive if you want to play, if you're not staying at the hotel, or if you don't know somebody that's already a member. So we have those 4 sort of high-end golf courses, as well as obviously the Barbados Golf Course, which is located on the southern end of the island. They all bring something to the table for sure. So we wanted to just delve into some of the global trends, which I know you've touched on, but particularly the changes in the buyer demographics and preferences. But have you seen any impact in particular in current or past global events that have affected the market at all?
Yeah, I mean, without going back sort of on myself and talking about COVID and talking about the sort of geopolitical issues that are currently facing the world with what's going on in Israel. But, when the war first broke out in Russia, with Russia and Ukraine, with them invading Ukraine, there were profound impacts on the global economy, but also on real estate markets across the world. We did see a similar response to what's going on now in the more recent conflicts with Israel and Palestine. So we are seeing quite a similar response to what happened back in the invasion of Ukraine in terms of buyers being a little bit more stagnant, sitting on the fence. Same from a seller perspective. I think clients, especially at the top end of the market, aren't quite comfortable with volatile markets. And if there's a lot of volatility and uncertainty, we do see things start to to quieten down, and markets do soften as a result of that. So that's what's happened recently. Again, the market here is quite seasonal.
Yeah.
And again, it's, from our side, we deal with a lot of clients who are purchasing, yes, from an investment perspective. It's great to purchase on the island from an investment perspective with no capital gains tax, for example. So you're not taxed on the appreciation of the value of your property, which is very attractive.
Yeah.
But more so from a lifestyle perspective, people come to the island, they fall in love with the island. We saw a lot of sales off the back of COVID when people were taking advantage of the welcome stamp and spending a lot of time on the island and falling in love with the properties here and the way of life here as well, and the culture.
Yeah.
And the people as well, so I think it's very lifestyle driven. So sometimes we do find, yes, markets are volatile, and yes, there's uncertainty going on, but if we have clients who have fallen in love with the island and are more the purchase is more personal than it is financial. Yeah. That's not going to stop anyone. So
100%.
So yeah, again, it's seasonal. It's that time of the year that people do find themselves coming back out. So we'll have to see what happens.
Yeah, no, and I was going to touch on, and you did slightly touch on it just now, is that, Barbados is an English-speaking country. So obviously for Brits, we're renowned for not being very good with our languages. So it's sort of a home from home. But we also have a diverse range of restaurants and places to eat and drink. I feel like every season there's always something new for people to try.
Exactly, yeah. Which is why I'm here. No, I'm joking.
And, from the rum shops to the Oystons Fish Fry to the Tides restaurant and the Cliff, we have something for everybody. And in fact, we've just come off the back of the Barbados Food and Wine Festival, which was an extremely successful festival. And arguably one of the best in the region. We're becoming very well known as being the sort of culinary heart of the Caribbean. So I think that festival just grows every year. There's something new every year as well for people to try and get them to come back over again. We're also seeing a lot more people interested in sort of our cultural side of what we do, so the Crop Over Festival as well, and the various events that are on during the winter season, from the Sandling Gold Cup to the polo to the cricket. There's always something going on and something that will pique your interest.
Exactly. Yeah, the social calendar here is next to none, and it's probably and arguably the best throughout the Caribbean. There's so much on offer here, and that's why we find people, clients of ours coming back, year after year for that reason. There's always something new going on, and there's an array of activities to choose from.
We just want to entice everybody and get something for everybody. So for sure. We also have, in my opinion, the best infrastructure in the Caribbean, and the ease of access and airlift to the US, Canada, and the UK, as well as Europe. We even now have a direct flight to some parts of sort of Latin America. So we're seeing more airlift from New York, Miami, Boston, Toronto, and Montreal. Sometimes we have even 2 flights a day from various places like the UK. And that's been fantastic for the island, particularly in the winter season, where obviously most people will come. I think if we're looking at investment as well, what we're finding is that obviously the best, as I mentioned before, the best holiday rental income earners would be beachfront, but we also see a lot of families being driven to the various developments like Apes Hill, Royal Westmoreland, Sugar Hill, and Westland Heights, where we actually have quite a few new listings. So inventory for the season is looking strong. We have good inventory across all sectors, from condos to townhouses to standalone homes within these communities or on the water. And we're looking forward to hopefully a very strong and successful season ahead.
Yeah, so one other thing worth mentioning from our side is we are just about to publish our latest Caribbean research, and that's going to come out at the end of the month. touches on trends that have taken place across various markets that we cover within the Caribbean, including Barbados, but also upcoming and new places. Worth mentioning. We call them sort of next neighborhoods, is what we like to term them. So I know that the Barbados, there's always, as we were talking about earlier in the podcast, there's always new places, up and coming areas that might be worth sort of mentioning from our side as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. One area of growth we're really seeing is Speightstown. That's seen a huge amount of regentrification and regeneration, which is encouraging as more businesses and opportunities are opening up in this area, like the local. We've also just seen a significant commercial property sell. It was the Norman Centre. It's now going to be called the Speightstown Centre, which is kind of right in the middle of Speightstown, and it's a younger buyer that is really keen to drive more business to the area. And already since he closed last week, we've seen, I've rented one space within the building of over 3,000 square feet to a local businessman who is keen to also bring traffic to Speightstown, and that is one area that we have to watch and see, because I believe firmly that it's one of the few places in Barbados that really still feels like it did 100 years ago. So it does make it quite quaint, and to me, some of the nicest beaches are on that side of the island. So it's really interesting to see what's going on there. We also have the new Baya restaurant just north of Speightstown, and that has got to be one of my top new restaurants to try. So if you're coming over this winter season, I would definitely recommend booking in there, as well as obviously the local, which I just touched on, which is a farm to table restaurant that is run by a very well-known London chef who I believe has just released an article in the Times herself about why she has moved over to Barbados during COVID and started up this fantastic new venture in Speightstown. Just to summarize the main points that we discussed during this podcast, what we have seen is that Barbados is seeing a resurgence of sale activity post-COVID, with a younger buyer now investing on island. This has been due to the fact of many reasons, but particularly being a safe and friendly island with some of the best infrastructure in the region, as well as good airlift, which encourages visitors from the US, Canada, and Europe. We would highly recommend that you, our listeners, explore the Barbados high-end real estate market further by speaking with myself or anybody at our Terra Luxury team, as well as Andy and the rest of the Knight Frank team in London. Thank you, Andy, for your valuable insights. You can find Andy on the various socials on Instagram, Facebook, as well as Knight Frank in their London office, and me in our Terra Luxury office here in Barbados, and again on the various social channels. We thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Terra Talks. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and share the podcast. Until next time.